again, as usual, on Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. It is the South Carolina NORML Cannabis Conversation. How
Hello,
are you all tonight?
everybody.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Click some buttons
Ooh,
around
I
here
just
and.
got the notification on my phone. So if you have
Oh,
liked,
yeah.
subscribed, and turned that bell on, you'd get a little notification on your cell phone.
Yes. Yep. I must admit, I don't get my YouTube ones on my phone, but when I go on YouTube, it's right there telling me, hey, cannabis conversation here. So you don't always have to be online while we're having the conversation. You can always watch them afterwards.
Mhm.
Although we love it when you're on with us because then you can interact and we can get your point of view as well. As we get started, one thing I do want to mention is that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not a market for, or not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis, and we do not encourage illegal behavior of any kind. And
Period.
as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our Facebook, or like our Facebook, I guess, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. I got to move things around here because I got the camera on this monitor. There, better. Mute 1 second. And with that, I want to again welcome everybody to the call tonight or to the podcast tonight. I do want to apologize to anybody. I'm getting over a bit of a cold, so I am coughing and sipping lots of water.
Getting all the liquids in.
Yep, so bear with me, and probably when we're done, I'll eat a good garlic sandwich to scare away those bad germs.
Okay. A
Oh,
garlic sandwich to scare
yes,
away the
ma'am. You take a piece
germs.
of bread, you slap on some butter, you mince up a clove or two of garlic, eat that puppy. Actually, that was a hangover cure that a friend of mine had. A very good friend of mine, good drinking buddy of mine for many years, and he was of Lithuanian descent, and he was raised by his grandparents, who were hard working, hard drinking people. And he said his grandfather had taught him that the cure for a hangover is, take a clove or two of garlic, mash it up, put it on some buttered bread, and eat it. And that's going to be, and I don't know if it ever really helped his hangover or if it just kept people far enough away from him that they never could tell he was hungover.
I mean, this is intriguing to me. See, I want to laugh at it, but I can't knock it because there's a lot of antioxidants within garlic. So I'm curious about how
I
that's helping.
I do have some belief in the healing powers of garlic.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely do. It's my take on it is when I'm feeling sick and I eat like a garlic sandwich like that, I don't taste it afterwards. I don't. You don't. Smell. It seems to like absorb and go and attack the germs. But if you're healthy and you do that, next thing you know, you're smelling like garlic. You're burping garlic.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'm gonna have
so
to. My sister actually recently asked me. She was like, "Hey, what are some tips for getting over a hangover?" And now I cannot wait to tell her, "Hey, I got one more for you."
got one more. There you go. So anyway, folks, welcome to the South Carolina Normal Garlic Conversation. Okay. Let me go ahead and click our next little button here before we get moving on. During our welcome, I also like to mention that we ask our supporters and our followers to support our sponsors. Visit southcarolinanormal.org/pages/our-sponsors and support our sponsors. And also, if you'd like to be a sponsor, reach out to us through our Gmail account or through our website, actually, on the contact page. And we can update you and give you some information on how to become a sponsor.
True that.
All right. Well, do you have the intro stuff open? Do you want to take a look at the agenda and tell people we're going to talk about tonight, or should I hit it
Yeah,
since I have it right in front of me?
I got you.
All righty.
All right, today is going to be, of course, exciting. I say this every week, but it's because it is exciting every single time. Today, especially because yesterday was election day, and hopefully you were able to go out and vote because voting is cool. and necessary and helps in a lot of ways. So yesterday was election day, so we'll be recapping that. A lot of exciting things have happened across the nation. So we'll talk about first some national election news, and then we'll whittle down into South Carolina election news as well. So I'm excited about this because simply because once again the national news is pretty cool. And I think that it's really great that Scott's going to start off on a high note because then we'll get into our own election. But go ahead. Pun intended.
I have to admit that is sort of why I structured the agenda the way I did tonight. Let's start off with some good news. Find those tickers and banners so I can share this stuff with you. We are going to start off tonight talking about national election results, and the top story of the night, or of the first story, should I say, not necessarily top, they're all top stories to me, but the first story tonight is that Maryland becomes the 20th state to legalize adult use cannabis. So I don't know how long it will take them to implement it, but it is. They've already got the medical structure, so I wouldn't see it as taking real long. But that to me was huge news. Is Maryland? You know, it's not too far away for a day trip or so. And sure. I have a link for that somewhere. Let me see if I can drop it in the chat for you. Or did...
I can grab that.
Grab it. You grab it. You can grab that. Appreciate that.
Yeah, gotcha.
So actually, let me get it up in front of myself too, so I can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, Maryland's been moving forward pretty well over the past couple of years. Voters are overwhelmed, and this was a voter referendum, mind you. The voters said yes. They're calling it question 4 in their state. I can give you the link to their actual ballotopia on that.
Maryland. Wow.
But that was the marijuana question. It was a yes or no question. A yes vote supported legalizing marijuana for adults 21 years of age and older, beginning in July of 2023. So they've got, 7 months or so that they're, 8.5 months or whatever, till it's officially legalized there for adult use. And directing the Maryland State Legislature to pass laws for the use, distribution, regulation, and taxation of marijuana. So, again, that's part of, I'm sure, some of the 7-month delay is getting that legislation passed and setting up, the structure. Setting up the structure with the distribution, regulation, and taxation. A no vote on that would have opposed legalizing for folks 21 and over. At that same time, and would not direct the state to implement those distribution regulation and taxation regulations. So that's one of the things when we talk about the difference between like decriminalization and legalization is decriminalization does not bring that distribution, that regulation, that taxation base. And for the most part, it is for a much smaller amount of cannabis overall. Here in South Carolina, that would be 28 grams or less. I believe there's states in Ohio, there's cities, towns in Ohio where when they were decriminalizing there, it was for like up to 100 grams, which is about 3.5 ounces. But again, this is a state level voter referendum that Maryland voters said that they want legal cannabis for adults. I'm trying to see if I see in here a percentage, and I'm not seeing
I was just reading it. So, and that's exactly what I was going to bring up. That they had, where was it at? Yeah, Maryland, 65.6% voted yes, and 34.4% voted no. So numbers wise, there was 966,200 people that voted yes to the legalization of marijuana. 507,779 people voted no. So that's a that's a strong vote right there. That's a
That's a
strong vote.
strong vote, especially when you consider most people that vote are older people.
Yeah.
And I hate to admit it as an older person, but most older people are not for the legalization of marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the heck's wrong with my generation and beyond. But you know, anyway,
You can't
um,
save them all.
but still, even with those uphill challenges, we'll call them,
Yeah.
65% voted to pass that legalization.
Yeah.
Um, Great news for Maryland. So congratulations to them. Um, if you ever do go up to like Baltimore area, Inner Harbor is beautiful. Fun place to visit and stay. Um, Tell us how
And
your trip was.
and I think it's also pretty cool too, especially considering how, the DMV area, right? DC in general has for so long been on that track as well, already having capabilities for people to be able to purchase marijuana, things of that nature, right? And it's been that little kind of pinpoint, that little dot within that whole DMV area. And so for Maryland to now be in that legalization realm, that's pretty exciting. Like that's why I said this is going to be exciting news, and I'm wondering that will um how that will play, because you've got Virginia, West Virginia, um, Virginia, especially for having that recreational use, and now Maryland with recreational use. Like that's going to be a little hub right there. I mean, and right now, uh, was it Pennsylvania is legal for medical only. So like that Northeast area is popping.
Yeah,
Is
that
popping.
that'll give a good push to Pennsylvania, I must admit, because
Yeah.
Maryland going full legalization. You've already got decriminalization in like Philadelphia, the largest city in the state, um, and they're trying to push for home grow for patients and things like that.
Right.
That and thankfully that Mehmet Oz did not win his election against John Fetterman. So hopefully that'll be a good push, for
Here,
Pennsylvania, um, as
here's a
far as legalization there.
here's a comment for you. Cannabis crab cakes coming soon. For our guy.
I so would enjoy that. Well,
Lobster.
why don't we go ahead and add just a little bit extra news on top of that and talk about Missouri becomes the
Missouri.
21st state to legalize cannabis for adult use. So again, in the chat, I will drop the link for that because I happen to queue it up. And you can always find these on NORML National's blog, norml.org, and their blog is posted on the front page. And you can always find these articles. But again, and I'm not seeing these in this article, so if you can find some numbers on this vote for us, Vaughn, while I'm starting to look at this.
I got you.
Excellent. Missouri voters have decided in favor of a ballot initiative Amendment 3. I'll pop that open and see if I can take a closer look at Amendment 3. Again, legalize the possession or purchase, cultivation, and consumption of cannabis products for adults 21 and older. 6% tax will bring in tens of millions each year to fund veterans, healthcare, drug treatment, and severely underfunded public defender system. Creates automatic expungements. Now that's something we didn't talk about with it in Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Creates automatic expungements for past nonviolent marijuana records. That's huge because as you hear me complain all the time, it's those residual consequences that sort of are hidden in the background that people have to deal with on a regular basis. It's things like, pre-employment cannabis testing and things like that are preventing capable people from working. I'll go on with this. It allows law enforcement to concentrate on fighting violent and serious crimes. Allows adults to possess up to 3 ounces of usable marijuana. and expands patient access from 4 to 6 ounces of usable marijuana. Strengthens the medical marijuana program by lowering costs, making patient card valid for 3 years, and allowing nurse practitioners to certify. And driving under the influence of marijuana remains illegal. So, you don't want to be impaired, and we do not promote being impaired while driving. Our biggest issue is they need to do impairment testing and not just cannabis P-test kind of things or swabs,
Right.
because they are not indicators of impairment.
At
And again,
all.
in Missouri, their ordinance or their bill would then create at least 144 new small businesses licenses awarded by lottery to historically disadvantaged populations.
Oh, that's
So,
interesting.
yeah. So that one's definitely more involved than the Maryland one that we just read.
Yeah, and yet the percentages were way a little bit of a tighter outcome there. Real quick before I'm gonna leave y'all on that cliffhanger, just to say what's up, Miggy, in the comments and viewing.
Hey, Miggy, thanks for joining
What's
us
up?
again. Appreciate you.
Hemp Lord in the building, of course. We appreciate it with the cannabis crab cake comment earlier. And Miggy says, democracy is saved once again. What the hell is up with Georgia? Listen, when you find out, tell us because God only knows.
Yeah. I went and looked this morning thinking, how'd Stacey Abrams do? And just like slumped.
Yeah, that's definitely a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Percentage wise, so it says Missouri voters have approved Amendment 3, ballot measure legalizing recreational marijuana for adults 21 and older and expunging most records. That's what you were just letting us know. And then 53.1% in favor and 46.9% against.
Wow.
And that was with 89% of the vote counted. So that's
much tighter.
That's tight. That's tight right there. Like that's
Yes.
tight. And when in those kind of cases too, I wonder if there's like a greater risk. I mean, you can't really tell with politics, I feel like a lot of times, but like there's a greater chance of like something arising, like a bill or something being proposed to go against it or to overturn it or things of that nature. So I wonder, obviously anyone who legalizes within their state, like it's not done after just legalizing. Like what does that mean? What does it entail? But I wonder for tighter races like that, I wonder what the pushback is.
Yeah. And there could be organizations that challenge it, or again, as the new legislature starts, try to file legislation to overturn it, or things of that nature. We've seen some states where the voters voted for legalization, and then somehow or another the government there obstructs and doesn't allow it to happen.
I think another thing too is like we see in this, right? Missouri has more of like the expungement that we saw that we didn't see necessarily in Maryland, the lottery element. So I'm curious if sometimes the pushback could be someone who does want to legalize, but they don't want to legalize in that way. And I think that's a conversation.
I think that's a lot of what we have here in South Carolina, to be quite honest with you, is a lot of the voters here want to see the end of criminalization, but they don't want to see any kind of expungement. Hey, you committed a crime when it was a crime. You should pay your dues, whatever.
Yeah.
And you got caught. I mean, that's the only reason most people get in trouble is they got caught.
Yeah.
Not that the cannabis ever did anything to them. It was the getting caught with cannabis. But anyway, so yeah, there are a fair number of that, and you file. Especially when you look at the federal. I'm sorry, the federal Senate. Oh gosh, I don't have that in front of me. There was a Republican-sponsored decrim bill that was decrim only. There was nothing else really about it. Just remove it, deschedule. There was just a deschedule it from the Controlled Substances Act and nothing else. And then, of course, on the House side was Nancy Mace's bill, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But Nancy did win her race in my community here, the South Carolina's first U.S. congressional district. So hopefully her legislation can possibly move forward. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, beyond that, uh, it's promising. I think in some respects, but here in South Carolina, especially the more conservative voters, are not interested in any kind of expungements or saying we're going to, like the Missouri won 144 licenses in a lottery to go to people who have been mostly affected by uh, prohibition to begin with.
Yeah.
They just want straight, okay, deschedule or legalize in my state or whatever,
Yeah.
but don't give me all this extra stuff with it.
Yeah, I
So,
think so, and I think that it's something that even in a state like South Carolina, especially with a state like South Carolina, when you see all the racial disparities in terms of arrests and things like that, it doesn't feel right to legalize without acknowledging that in some kind of actionable way. Expungement is one of those things that should absolutely be talked
expungement at a
about
minimum. Yeah.
at a
Hmm.
minimum. Exactly, Scott. At a minimum, like it should be, it should really be thought through. That's a piece we
All
really
righty.
need in
Well,
South Carolina.
I didn't mean to close that button. Now I got to open it again. Well, I'm going to switch tickers here and we'll kind of go on to the next subject. But thank you again for looking up those statistics because that was definitely a much tighter race.
Oh, if you don't mind, I also wanted to just kind of talk about who didn't get to pass anything or whose midterm vote for recreational use failed, and that's North Dakota, South Dakota, um, Arkansas. All of these places are already medical, but they did not pass for recreational use. So just thought that could, because there was a lot of legislation up there and things of that, or things that other states other than these two where it passed. But so I think it's pretty interesting to see the ones that did
Three
not.
out of three out of five were on the ballot. Thank you for bringing that up because that's something I didn't even think to talk about. I wanted to
Hmm.
look at the upside to
Yeah, that's
everything.
right. Yeah. I came in with the rain cloud. So it is.
No, it definitely makes a good point. I mean, really, when you
Yeah.
think about it, only 40% of the voter initiatives in the states passed. Those
Yeah.
two passed, three of them didn't.
Yeah.
Um, so if my math is right, that should be 40%.
Well,
And
no, I think it's another element too that relates to South Carolina because once again, being a state where neither medical or recreational is legal, we have the opportunity, the advantage. Here I go at the silver lining. We have the advantage of seeing who is legal, what's working for them, what isn't working for them. And here you have these states with medical programs, which is what South Carolina keeps toting as like the entryway into legalization is this medical. So I'm wondering, what I want to do a little bit more research on is what are these states that are not passing, that have medical but are not passing recreational, what's their basis for that? Like what are their politicians kind of standing on the most in order to say like this isn't worthy of being recreational?
excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah, because it's really the sales pitch to the voters. What are the voters hearing that are
Right.
making them choose not to pass this legislation? Um, so that'll be something very interesting to talk about in the upcoming future.
For sure.
Last thing I did want to sort of mention here on national level is before we get into election results stuff is Texas City's move to depenalize marijuana possession. Um,
Mm,
these are local ballot initiatives throughout 5 Texas cities
in
in
Texas.
Texas. And I'll go ahead and share the link to the blog post on that from NORML. But once I click the right buttons,
I got you right here.
oh, got it in there.
Too fast. Too fast.
Yeah, lucky. But anyway, again, when we talk about decriminalization or depenalization, we are talking about simple possession. Um, uh, and I'm going to say I don't see the specifics on this particular one, but it's probably, again, less than an ounce, or at least that's what it would end up being in
Hmm.
South Carolina if we were to move in that direction. Um, These are, again, local ordinances. They're eliminating the local enforcement of low-level marijuana offenses.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically all it is. They're just removing the enforcement of it. Doesn't make it legal. If you get caught with it, you could still, get in trouble. Um, Texas leads the nation in marijuana-related arrests. Under state law, the possession of 2 ounces or less, so their decriminalization or depenalization would be 2 ounces or less, of cannabis is defined as a criminal misdemeanor,
Mm-hmm.
punishable by up to 180 days in jail and a $2,000 fine. I mean, at least where's some wood to knock? At least South Carolina is only 30 days in jail. 180 days in
Yeah.
jail.
Yeah.
Freaking
180 days. So 180 days. I'm not a math person. That's like 6 months, right?
about six
Uh-oh.
months. Yep.
Woo! Look at you, girl. Okay. So 6 months. If you spent 6 months in jail, I'm pretty sure you won't have a job once you get out of jail.
Yep,
Um,
and unless somebody else is able to pay your rent for you, you won't
right.
have your home. If
Excellent
somebody
point.
else, unless somebody else is able to make your car payment for you, guess what? You don't even have a home on
Yeah.
wheels. Um,
Yeah. For
this is
possession.
the way they abuse people who just
Yeah.
want to use a little bit of cannabis and relax and feel better.
Yeah. And then when you have in that article that Scott dropped, you'll also see that, of course, African Americans are disproportionately arrested. So when we think about things like where are the resources, or where, say your breadwinner ends up in jail because of possession, okay, your family is now affected by that. Your family is now scrambling from that. Your family is now trying to figure out what the next move is, and on top of trying to make sure that, even if you wanted to try to get, say it's the breadwinner or a main support system, a very important piece of the puzzle, you might be spending lawyer fees. Like, you might be spending all kinds of money. Not might be. You would be spending all kinds of money just trying to get things back to somewhat of normal. And then after that, you're probably still going to be trying to pay for that, for the, trying to pay that off, or trying to get resources replenished again. And so if that's disproportionately affecting a community, I guess my shortcut to this is just saying, like, yeah, of course there are people that are in the African American community. Like, people talk about this all the time when they're trying to make like points about, oh, this neighborhood isn't all that good, or this, that, and the third, and um, people are lazy, or people within this community aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And it's like, no, actually, there's a lot of uh, odds stacked up against people. Like, there's a lot of barriers put in people's places that have been disguised as just laws, when they're
Mm-hmm.
actually just BS, and they're not helping anybody. Like, they're not helping anybody at all. So I think that this is another reason why it's important for us. Yo, Scott's got the back scratcher. Oh, I want one of those. I'm so jealous right now. A good back scratcher. All right. But it's just very important. It's very important for us to talk about these kinds of things. And also, it's a hope too, that I think what I'm inspired by with Texas is that, and when I first joined NORML, this was something that we were talking about very heavily, but decriminalizing even within the city or the county, just starting there. I think that that's effective, and I that's a huge win. So I definitely could see that for Charleston County. I really could.
Absolutely, and this is, again, seeing this in the national news on this election follow up, gives me some new hope that I'll be able to reach out to some of the folks in Texas and
Yeah.
sort of what I need to do is learn how to draft up these ordinance proposals, these petitions.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And all I know is they're going to be a little bit different from each city based on what their bylaws are. You have to get their bylaws and or whatever and look through them and go, okay, we can plug this in here to give it a section number and all that. Um, and then it's a matter of just getting signatures on ballots and on petitions,
Mhm.
and getting enough signatures to get it on the ballot. And then, of course, then there's the push to get it voted for. I don't see a problem with getting decriminalization voted through in Charleston County or in the city of Charleston, especially.
Yeah.
But it's still an uphill challenge because rough numbers is we would need about, I think it's 15,000 signatures on petitions from registered voters that specifically live in the city that you're petitioning. So Charleston, about 115,000 signatures, and that's a big effort.
Yeah, for sure. And people being not nervous. Man, there's just a whole lot of like nervous energy around saying that people support cannabis and I'll specifically talk about Charleston. There are, I mean, as you know, we have a cannabis shop. My husband and I have a cannabis shop on King Street, and we have amazing clientele that comes through. People who are relieved to see us, to see our product, things like that. But a lot of them too are very nervous to you know, to say out loud or to like, I've got the NORML stuff in the shop, and there are people like, man, this is so necessary, this is so needed, and I'm like, well, I need volunteers, and they're like, I'm nervous about my job, I'm nervous about this, you know, and I think that is a part that I try to find some workarounds for. You know, like,
and sometimes it's hard to find love out there. You know, there's times I wear cannabis related stuff and I hear people going, "Oh, what a fucking pothead."
Yeah,
you get derogatory statements from people.
For sure.
You know, that would be equivalent to every time I see somebody with an alcohol, let's say an alcoholic beverage, just calling him an alcoholic. Or something like that, or a T-shirt that mentions some brand of tequila or rum, or you're nothing but an alcoholic.
Miggy hit the nail on the head. People treat pot shops like porn stores, and it is so true, because I'm gonna tell you, like, when people will walk past the shop, right? We'll use the shop as an example. People walk past the shop, and then when you explain to them what you sell, they're like, oh, it's like, there's nothing. It's very very simple what we sell, you know, and it doesn't have to be secretive because it's legal, and there's nothing has to be secretive about it. It's very, very interesting. Couple more comments here for you, Scott. It's scary when you can lose your job. Yeah.
I was just reading them before you said. I was going to say, let's share these other comments.
For a fact.
Losing their kids, you know, and this is why we do what we do, folks. It's not because we want to sit around and just get high all day. Nothing wrong with that, but it's not just because of that. We're doing it because we think it's morally wrong to put people in prison for simple cannabis possession and use, and for taking their children away from them and making it difficult to get an education and making it difficult to get a job and making it difficult to get housing. It's just not.
Yeah.
I don't want to say the word fair because it's just not honorable. It's not just.
Yeah. That's right. I agree with that. I think that too. And here's another point I like to, like you said, it's not about just sitting around and getting high, because some of us who absolutely enjoy cannabis also don't want to be high. That's me. Like, it's not about high, but the great feeling that I get with cannabis, especially, like, I guess my point is, because of the fact that I'm a cannabis user that doesn't like high amounts of THC, I feel like it's very important for me to voice my opinion so that people understand, erase this stigma about what cannabis is, because it's such a beautiful and diverse, like, so highly versatile plant that, like, anyone who has a love for it can enjoy it on varying degrees of intensity. It can be tailored to what you need, to what you like.
All the more reason for that regulation.
All the more reason for that regulation, so that you, like, we get people that come in, they're like, I just don't want to get, too high or something like that. I'm like, I got you. Like, me either. And I'm a very big cannabis proponent, because to me, I'm not going to discriminate either way, because this plant is so versatile. It can be tailored to your needs. That's a beautiful thing. Like
Well, and
I think that's great.
I was just telling somebody the other day is how I sometimes smoke hemp, CBD hemp. Sometimes I smoke marijuana. Um, and the one thing I have to do that when I say
Of
marijuana.
course.
Um, but the one thing that I did notice since I started smoking hemp flower is that, especially at nighttime, I like to smoke before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And I find if I smoke hemp flower before I go to bed, I still get those. I still get tired. I still sleep better. I think I get a
Hmm.
better night's sleep.
Hmm.
And I wake up feeling a lot more clear headed than if I smoke real
Yeah.
marijuana. And then I wake up in the next morning with kind of a cannabis hangover.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I
That's
mean, I probably would have said somebody was full of shit a long time ago. What do you mean a hangover? You don't get a hangover. But
yeah.
you actually do have some, like,
You
depending
got
on
some
how much,
residuals, some
get some
residuals.
little residual or whatever. I mean, depending on how, I guess, how late you smoke before how long you sleep or whatever. But yeah, it just, I seem to wake up a little harder, a little slower if I'm
Yeah.
smoking high THC cannabis versus low THC cannabis.
Yeah, that's a great example as to why it's so important for us to spread the knowledge, because the way that these cannabinoids work with each other, the entourage effect is very real. The fact that CBD is such a great anchor for delta 9 THC is real. Like, it's a real thing. Shout out real quick. Hemp Lord said closet smokers over here in Charleston. That is for sure. And that's not a diss. It's just like
Hot
what Miggy's
boxing, hot box in that closet.
hot box in that closet. I wanted to quickly speak to, again, I had another and I know we need to move on, but I did want to say, especially to Miggy's point about, like, the scariness between, like, losing your job, potentially losing your kids. I think about that all the time when I'm like, I am working on being, like, as much as I'm like not caring too much for social media nowadays, I have found it to be very important for me to be a little bit more vocal in public about the fact that I support cannabis, and especially the way that I support cannabis. And I speak about it openly. I speak about it in, like, casual conversation. And I have a child and I have a job outside of also co-owning a shop. And I think about those things, and a lot of times I'm like, you know what? I'm going to jump off the porch with it, and I'm going to say that I support this, and hopefully it'll inspire, hopefully, I don't know, but, like, hopefully it will inspire someone else, because those are things I think about all the time. Those are things I think about all the time. So I'm glad that that was mentioned, because it is scary. Like, shoot, it's even scary for me sometimes, where I'm like, I'm hoping that, all right, hope that this works out well, because it's a balance, and I think that's kind of like my element of advocacy in that way when I think about that stuff. So when I'm posting stuff and I'm like, hey, I love the smell of terps in the morning, and then I got a big jar of bud that that I'm like, here it is. This is Vaughn with a big jar of bud, and then I get people hit me up like, what are you doing over there? Are you sure that's legal? Yes, I'm sure.
Absolutely
I'm a
sure.
well researched person.
Yeah,
South Carolina.
I mean, similarly for me, I gotta say, when I moved to South Carolina from Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania didn't even have medical yet. I came to what I thought was told was not a good place to be as a cannabis advocate by, at least in the eyes of law enforcement. Um, but I figured, well, I'm old, I'm a white guy, I don't have a job that anybody is going to take away from me because I'm self-employed for the most part. It was at the time. Um, so I just thought, well, put it out there and see what happens. And
And see what
yeah, I've been
right,
pretty
right.
lucky. I've even had some good conversation with law enforcement officers, but
Yeah, same.
it doesn't mean I'm going to like be going, oh yeah, I have some in my pocket.
Yeah, there's boundaries, right? There's boundaries, right? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I feel the same way. I feel like I was very fortunate because I feel like I have a job that at least the coworkers that I have are very supportive. Uh, my family's very supportive. People that come through are very supportive, and I'm appreciative of that. And I'm also once again downtown, so sometimes the acceptance is just a little bit different downtown than in other places. So I am fortunate, and so I'm using that fortune to hopefully build a good platform because I know that there's plenty of people not in that same space. So that's why we're trying to fight that good fight.
All righty. Are you all ready for this? We are going to start talking
That's
about
why we
the
needed that pep talk before we talk about these election results. But go ahead.
It's time to talk about the election results. I shared the link in the chat if you'd like to go and kind of follow along. What I'm going to try to do is share the results, and if I need to, compare a little bit to our voter guide. So with that, let me just kind of find the button here that I want to share my screen. I don't know what that means.
And while Scott's looking for that, once again, thank you all so much for watching. That sounded like I was about to close the show, but I'm just saying thank you for for watching so far. Everyone who's in the comments, who's watching from wherever, we really appreciate you all. And if especially if you're in South Carolina and you want to get down, okay, and you want to help us push that good message, hit us up. Back to Scott.
All righty. Um, Over here is the link that I shared. This is South Carolina Votes or scvotes.org. You go in there, and I think right in that first page, there's a button to click to get to the results. But let's go ahead and start with our governor. And as you know, many of us had hopes for Joe Cunningham, then Tally Parham Casey is her name as lieutenant governor, the Democratic candidate, or even the Libertarian candidate, Bruce Reeves and Jessica Etheridge, because they both had pro-cannabis policies.
Mm-hmm.
I think on the Libertarian one, they got slightly lower grade. Actually, Jessica Etheridge had filled out, or at least her staff had filled out, our candidate questionnaire like a day or two before the election. I think, at least that's when I saw it.
Oh, nice.
So, that did get filled in. So she actually got a slightly higher grade than her gubernatorial candidate running mate. But anyway, unfortunately, when you look at the numbers here, Henry McMaster, who gets a nice F rating on the normal voting guide, got 58.04% of the vote, or 985,692. These are, and I want to just make sure I highlight this, these are unofficial results. I'm not sure exactly how long it takes for them to, officiate them. But it does mention here that this is with 46 out of 46 counties reporting. So that should be everybody. There was also a .07 write-in. I wonder who got written in. Oh, I know there's a bit of a campaign to write in Mia McLeod,
Right.
who is a sitting legislator and is also a pro-cannabis legislator. So maybe that's where that small write-in amount came there. Secretary of State, again, we were talking Rep. Mark Hammond versus Democrat Rosamunda Peggy Butler. Mark Hammond took that seat pretty cleanly at 63.33%, or 1,068,339 of the votes, compared to 36.61% for the opposing candidate.
Wow.
Let's see who we have here.
Were there more votes for the? Well, I know it's still unofficial, but more votes for the Secretary of State than than the governor. But go ahead.
True. Maybe some of the people that voted for the Secretary of State really didn't want the governor. Maybe that's some of our supporters there that were voting for pro-cannabis instead.
Right.
We did not have Secretary of State on the Smoke the Vote guide. Why that's not on there, I don't know, but it was not on. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. I thought maybe I saw it down there. Um, but yeah, that is not one that made it to the Smoke the Vote guide. So yeah, that's all kind of new to me. Same with State Treasurer was not on there. State Treasurer, 79.68% win. I'm not even sure what ALN is. Do you? It's not independent. I mean,
Oh,
it's
it's
not libertarian.
because I saw this with Lisa Ellis
Oh yes,
on
okay.
State Superintendent, which I also had a question about. Like I felt like this was beyond my understanding of politics in this particular instance as to why she showed up twice on the ballot. But
No, is that the one I'm looking? Land.
yeah, the ALN party. National Liberal Action. That's not it. No, that's not it at all.
I'm
I
not
can't.
finding it on my
It
Google
did.
here.
It did list it out, but I'll research it.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Oh, okay. So she ran under two different parties there, which is weird because she split her own vote on the
Yeah.
state superintendent of education. Because
Yeah.
not that adding that extra 3% to the 39% would have made a big difference, but it still kind of split her own vote, which seems weird. Let me go back up here. Oh, I wanted to point out Attorney General Alan Wilson got 97.32% of the vote.
Alliance
Write-ins
party.
were 2.68. I wrote my name in.
I wrote my name in as well. I wrote my name in as well for Attorney General because I was like, if there's,
I didn't want to give
myself.
my vote to him, and I didn't want to throw my vote necessarily away.
Yeah, I absolutely voted for
But an
myself in this.
uncontested race, you really don't have a lot of say in. Same with the Comptroller General down below.
I at first
Uncontested
was going
race.
to write literally anyone else. That's what I was going to write those words, literally anyone else. And I said, well, if it's literally anyone else, I'll just put myself in it.
Yeah, we could have tried Tommy Chong, but Snoop Dogg.
Lots of other people.
All right, let me kind of just buzz by the next couple of these. State Superintendent of Education, Republican Representative Ellen Weaver took that 55.52%. Commissioner of Agriculture, again a big sweep by Hugh Weathers, 77.62. This was one.
I did want to quickly say that the agriculture, Commissioner of Agriculture, really one for us to keep our eyes on too, especially with the whole hemp program, things like that. This would be a good one to keep our eye on and kind of see. This is just another angle to kind of go through with this, with cannabis. Like what is legal here, obviously, is hemp, and that hemp program is questionable.
And especially after that questionable hemp raid that we've been talking about, if this person's supposed to be in charge of the department where the farmer was filing his information with and it all got screwed up, always have to see who's at the top and who's responsible for that. Let's go ahead to U.S. Senate here. Tim Scott versus Crystal Matthews. Here's what I'm going to do a real quick click. Tim Scott versus Crystal Matthews. Crystal Matthews had an A rating.
Yep.
I'm not sure if she's actually for full legalization. She hasn't completed our questionnaire, but let me click into hers real quick here. She was a co-sponsor of the medical bill. She spoke rather eloquently about that medical bill on the Senate floor.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she would have been a good replacement for Tim Scott, who has a D rating, and the only reason he doesn't have a lower rating is he would have needed to actually sponsor or co-sponsor anti-marijuana legislation to get an F rating on our rubric. So I'm really kind of disappointed in that one.
Yeah, I was as well.
And then when we go to the House race for U.S. House District 1, again, folks, that is the district I live in. We had a Dr. Annie Andrews on the Democratic Party running against Nancy Mace on the Republican Party. As many of you know, Nancy is the sponsor of the States Reform Act, which is a federal level bill to deschedule cannabis. It does include some, I believe, expungement language, a relatively low tax base on it, and I don't know if there was any other reparations or community give backs in that. I'm blanking a little bit on it now. I think it's the cold. But anyway, Nancy spoke about this, her legislation a few months back, saying that it wasn't going to go anywhere this year, but if she is reelected, she's going to really try and rally the troops around, get other House members to co-sponsor her bill. Last I saw, she had 4 co-sponsors. Excuse me.
Take your time. And, that was a strong beat on the chest. That was like very. Yeah, there you go.
and I'm gonna hurt myself.
I was about to say you gotta be careful.
But Nancy did win by a pretty strong amount there. Let me see if I can pull hers up. 56.39% against Dr. Andrews at 42.46. Another race that I was watching pretty closely was Representative Joe Wilson against Judd Larkins in District 2.
Yeah.
Again, candidate Larkins had filled out our candidate questionnaire. And if you want to go and kind of see his responses, you're always welcome to go click on and take a look. But definitely voiced his support for marijuana legalization. And Joe, actually, man, is the D-. We don't add the minuses often, but
D-.
He got that little extra minus on there. We'll go on down to House District 3 and 4. Obviously, these are uncontested races. I lie. House District 4 had a write-in candidate, Lee Turner, from that district. She garnered 9.19% of the write-in votes against them. I mean, I got to give you credit because I give her credit because I really didn't see the ramp up until about for her write-in until about 2 weeks before. We shared it maybe once or twice on social media for folks up in that region to look at the Smoke the Vote guide and look at the difference. And that's when we couldn't actually put her Smoke the Vote guide information in because she was a write-in, so she didn't get listed on like Ballotopia and stuff. Jeff Duncan, again uncontested, 97.62%. Folks up in that community or in that district also decided to write in somebody against them because they didn't want them there. House District 5, Ralph Norman. I'm pretty sure Ralph's got, again, another D. Almost all of our House representatives, except for Clyburn, have and Mace, I'm sorry, have like a D rating. So Ralph Norman took his district pretty strong, 64.3 or 03. Again, these are the people that Nancy Mace should be trying to get as co-sponsors.
Yeah.
And most of them probably will never co-sponsor her legislation. I hate to say it, Evangeline Hundley running against him, 34.44. We did see here in District 6, Clyburn, he has an A rating, I believe. He is... And Buckner, I tried a couple of times to get him to, or there is his campaign to answer our questionnaire. I did see a medical advocate promoting him, saying he was for medical marijuana, and I think even sort of suggested that through conversations, he should be listed. And I'm like, without a resource, we really can't list it. So here, I sent him the questionnaire. You're welcome to send him the questionnaire. Just have him fill it out, and we'll grade them and get them on the Smoke the Vote guide. Never did receive that, but my understanding is Duke Buckner did support at least medical. Clyburn, you can look at his record and see he's definitely a cannabis supporter for um, civil rights and civil liberties reasons for the most part. District 7, we had a Russell Fry against Daryl Scott. I don't think we had either of those listed in the Smoke the Vote guide. No information on either of them. Again, Russell Fry cleaned that one up real quick. I don't want to go through these one at a time, so I'm going to kind of jump over a lot of the uncontested races. You'll see we have a lot of Republican uncontested races. And as we move through, again, it was a very strong Republican turnout on almost all of the races.
Yeah. Lots of red on that on this particular website. And I know that you're going to go through some more. I do have a comment that I can save till the very end, and it's a positive note, so I'm going to wait till the I'll wait till the end.
Okay, well, positive notes are always good.
Positive notes are good.
We had this Matt Valeradabo on our, I think we had him on our conversation one evening. Again, that was sort of a disappointing for cannabis supporters. He did not win his race. We do have a couple of I'm not sure if we have Rosalind Myers' response here. What district is she? 31. We did get her response back in. Okay. So she was at least for medical use. So that's a plus, at least at state level. Again, that was an uncontested seat, so there was nothing we could have done either way. And as you can see, I don't understand why we have so many uncontested seats throughout the state.
Yeah.
But we do.
Yes.
Quite a number of them. This one here, we did have a Democratic win. Let me see if we have this particular candidate on our list. District 41, Jennifer Breckeisen, I think that's it. She had a good grade. Probably would have been a benefit to keep that seat. The Andy McDaniel, who did win this seat, I'm seeing medical use, but I'm not seeing a grade, which is kind of odd. But, and it looks like that person, based on the email address, was an incumbent, so they were already a sitting legislator. Probably explains kind of the incumbents generally tend to have a better chance of keeping their seat. I'm not seeing any others I really need to kind of comment on.
Another interesting fact is that it looks like South Carolina had 50.71% of voters casting their ballots. So that was about 1.7 million. And we have roughly over 3.3 million registered voters within the state.
Oops.
So
didn't mean to do that.
That is.
We had it, yeah. So going back to where we started the show with kind of is I'm kind of disappointed and sort of relieved all at the same time, but sort of disappointed that I didn't get to work the polls because I have not yet worked a general election. I keep working primaries and runoffs and stuff like that, and usually they're pretty easy. You get 10 or 12% of the voters turn out. You know, runoffs even less. I know the one day we put in like 12 hours. I think we serviced 70 people throughout the 12-hour, of election day. Where I know one year when I went to my local precinct here on James Island in Charleston, I walked into the high school and you kind of like had a line outside the door. Eventually you got inside the door and they made you make a left turn away from the voting area, walked all the way down the hall, around, back down the hall, finally got into the cafeteria room where they zigzagged you through there for like a couple of times until you finally got up to start signing in. I think it took a good 45 minutes to an hour to vote that time. It was really a long line.
Yeah.
So, you say you have a story you're going to share with us?
Well, not so much a story, but just like an ending note about. I think sometimes, of course, in this case, a lot of times the morale can suffer in terms of people who do want to see legalization, and so it's just more so of a message for people that even though these like the results can be disappointing, right? They could be disappointing, but it does not mean that we have to stop, fighting for what we feel is right. It doesn't mean that we have to stop. If anything, it's put your foot on the gas even more. I saw a lot of comments from people who said, classic lines like, see, I knew there was no point in voting or anything of that nature or things of that nature. And that's just not the case. There is value because if anything, you at least have these stats to see who's coming out, who voted for who. I mean, there were people on here that do have great ratings or like great scorecards on Smoke the Vote, and they're not necessarily, it's not like they had zero voters. So there are people coming out and voting in line with people who will help in making things easier in terms of that. Well, easier is a term not to take lightly, but at
Well,
least have
and
some traction.
Just your numbers from that Missouri vote kind of tell you how important it is to vote because it wasn't that far off.
That's right. That's right. And so it's worth it. And I think that people in South Carolina just have to see more of, what we're doing and what other organizations similar to us are doing in terms of pushing for human rights within this. Cannabis prohibition is debilitating. It is racist. It is it's a terrible thing to be going on, and it has way more to do with like just false narratives and things of that nature. We don't need that pumped into our communities. So we're going to continue doing what we need to do. And I think that's another great segue into the fact that if you want to volunteer with us, just hit us up. Hit us up.
There you go. Which reminds me, Vaughn, I do have a new volunteer inquiry I'll be following up with in the next day or so I don't drop the darn ball like I tend to do so often. But let's go ahead and talk real quick about what's next. I know we're after 8 o'clock, but bear with us, folks. What's next will probably be trying to, in the coming year, after the new legislators are seated, see if we can rejuvenate our decrim locally initiative. And so that's one place. That's the only place I really see South Carolina being able to move forward. We've got such a fight with the legislator at state level that I think we really need to start decrimming at local level and sending that message to the state legislators that, hey, if you're not going to help us, we're going to start and do it ourselves and start here with local ordinances. So, that's kind of what's next. With that said, we'll talk a little bit about upcoming events. This Saturday we will be, not this Saturday, started this past week. We got the brand new 2023 official membership badges in. We have 2 membership packages online, one where you get your membership badge and 5 postcards to mail out to your 5 legislators. And then, of course, we have another one that includes a t-shirt at a discount. So if you want to get one of these fancy NORML t-shirts at a bit of a discount, go ahead and get that package. And during the membership drive, and I don't know if I brought it all with me, I probably didn't, we are adding bonus items to each membership that signs up between now and February 14th. Each person, when they sign up, will also receive, let me see if I have a couple of these to show, a copy of Emerging Clinical Applications. Will come along with your membership and t-shirt if you order. A pocket constitution, because what we do is all about the Constitution. You will get 5, I don't have them here, new stickers to share with around your home, your friends, wherever you put stickers at. You'll also get a, I want to say, 1.5-inch, 2-inch button, and one of our very popular enameled leaf pins. So we got some goods for you this time. Oh, and I almost forgot. You'll be entered into our drawing, which usually has been including the Dope Man board game, but we're also starting to reach out to some community businesses to see if we can find some other donations to add to the gift basket. So and last but not least on that is memberships make great gifts for your advocate loved ones. Don't forget to order them on our website. Next is this coming Saturday, November 12th. We will be at the refinery at 640 Meeting Street Road in Charleston from noon to 6 p.m. for the Pride Festival. We participated in the Pride Festival a number of times throughout the year, and the civil rights fight for Pride has kind of walked side by side or hand in hand, if you will, with cannabis reform for many, many decades. And we've always had a great time at that event. So many people just not having a wonderful time being who they are without feeling that they need to be inhibited about it in any way. So it's really a fun time. Come on out and participate if you'd like, and check out the Pride Festival. See you there if you do. Last but not least, as far as coming events, and this could have gone under what next, is going to be our lobby day in Columbia. That'll be coming up on Wednesday, January 25th. We have not exactly nailed all of the participants yet. We'll be inviting some speakers to come and participate with us. We still have plenty of signs from last year's event that we will be handing out and letting, hopefully we have lots and lots of people show up to hold signs for us to let the new batch of legislators that are coming in, or the ones that have been reelected, to know that we support cannabis law reform here in South Carolina. And with that, I should probably see if I can find the link to it. If you want to talk with your legislator, if you want to visit with your legislator, just let us know by signing up at almost there. There it is. Signing up for the Lobby Day press conference here. Put it in the comments. Oops, I just hid the comments.
That was probably my favorite part of Lobby Day earlier this year, was the fact of people coming and speaking with their legislatures and things of that nature. So please sign up. That is a very valuable time for you to get some face-to-face time, and we'll explain this more as we kind of get to that time. But you also don't have to go alone. Like, we're also there to help kind of guide you to where you need to be, and kind of give you that service there, that customer service, if you will, that hospitality while you go talk about some things that are important to you.
Yep, and we'll sit there with you and talk with your legislator with you. So again, if you'd like to talk with your legislator, sign up and we will see about trying to schedule an appointment with them. That's probably the biggest challenge. Good example of that was last year on Lobby Day. We reached out to my local senator, Senator Sandy Sen, who is definitely not a cannabis advocate or supporter, and her office said, "Oh, we've already made a decision on that. We're not interested in talking to you." Yeah. So on the flip side of that, my state House representative, who did win their election yesterday, I saw them at an event a couple of weeks ago. I handed them an honorary 2022 membership badge, and they said, "I'm going to hang this up in my office at the State House." So I was pretty thrilled by that one.
That's a win.
But that's it for tonight. Vaughn, do you have anything you want to say to the folks before we let them go for the night?
I'm good. This was great. I really appreciate you all rocking with us at per usual. And we'll see you again next Wednesday. That's all
You,
I got. Thanks, y'all.
all right. Thank y'all. Have a great night. Bye bye
Peace.
now.